Hey legend, thanks for stopping by to check out this video. Super stoked that you're here because I'm going to be sharing with you and unpacking a bit of a sick story that my online client, Pamela, has gone through. She's someone who is a single mum from Perth. And yeah, we're basically in this video going to be unpackaging her whole journey, where she was at the start before she started with me, basically struggling, well, like, I'm not going to spoil it for you, you're going to hear it in the interview, but basically unpackaging her whole journey from where she was, where she is now, which is obviously being lean, mean, strong, just loving life, just an absolute champion, an entirely new person, and basically trying to highlight and give you as much value as possible and insights to help you in your journey based on what she went through to be able to get to where she is now. So yeah, pay attention. It's going to be sick. You're going to have lots of good learnings, lots of insight, lots of inspiration, and just hopefully lots of self-belief instilled within you that it is possible when you approach fat loss in a smart way. Because when it comes to fat loss, understand that it's like what you're literally fighting and going against is your body's inclinations, survival instincts, that sort of thing, where we're basically hardwired to hold on to fat. Like, your body doesn't give a shit about trying to keep you lean and for you to have lots of muscle and just be lean and toned, right? So it's like you're fighting against that, so you need to be learning how to give your body reason to do so. Otherwise, at best, you'll get skinny fat like many women get to, or like most women actually do. They just give up on their journey because it just gets too hard and yeah, so confusing. So hope this interview is going to be of epic value to you. As I said, strap yourself in, get ready for some epic insight. Let's get stuck into the chat with Pam. Alrighty, so once again, Pam, welcome. Really excited to be unpackaging your story in this success story interview today. So massive welcome. How are you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. How are you, Angus?
I am fantastic. I'm excited, as you can tell. I love doing these sort of videos. I love being able to unpackage people's stories, where they were, where they are now, and everything in between. So that way, well, people tuning in and yeah, just people out there doing the solo hustle can be inspired as to what's possible. So you've obviously been someone that has achieved some epic gains, all sorts of personal development wins. You've literally become a new person pretty much from inside and out via your alpha journey so far. So let's kind of rewind and go right back to, I guess, where you were before in the solo hustle, solo game, solo path before you crossed paths with me. So why don't you paint the picture for what things were like, what you were struggling with, what sort of stuff you were doing, obviously to try and improve your body image and stuff like that. Why don't you paint the picture for those that are tuning in?
All right, I didn't really have a solid plan at that point. I had been doing a lot of CrossFit before that. I found myself getting quite injured, but I kind of like high energy stuff. So I was kind of looking to maybe going back to that, but I didn't really have a solid plan. And then when I got injured doing CrossFit, I started doing a lot of cardio, like a shitload of cardio. Like, I started running marathons and doing a lot of running, almost like daily running, like 12 kilometers a day, that sort of thing. But when I reached out to you, I saw one of your Facebook posts, and it sort of had a call to action at the end of it. If you want like a free, like a sort of call with me just to see where you're at. So I thought I'll click on that, and I knew that it was going to be going onto a program or something, but I thought, and at that point I hadn't really even thought about signing up for something at that point either, but I just kind of thought, well, I need some direction at least, because I was needing something. I didn't know what, but I needed something.
There you go. So Team CrossFit, hey? Seems to be pretty common that people, love the energy, love the vibe, love the culture, but quite common that people injure themselves, and therefore, it puts them out from being able to do lots of stuff, depending on, I guess, what sort of injury, you had. And then that's where people naturally will go, all right, well, what can I do? And then cardio. But then due to the fact that, as you would have experienced, not too crash hot in terms of the results that you get from just doing that. And when you combine lack of results with all this input, this is when typically people, will go to food to try and make themselves feel better. So why don't you, I guess, share a bit of insight in terms of, like, I know a lot of people struggle these days with, making sense of the best way to approach, food to be able to actually be healthy and lose body fat. So why don't you, I guess, share how that was for you before you and I started? What was your relationship with food like? What were you trying? In terms of just trying to make sense of it all yourself. Why don't you paint the picture with food in that relation?
I sort of had the mentality that as long as you eat healthy, you're fine. And I thought calorie counting was kind of just for like like an outdated model, I guess, like an old-fashioned sort of way of going about things. So I just thought, as long as I eat healthy, get my raw food, get my smoothies, get my healthy oils, blah blah blah, you know. And a few years ago, I did actually have a fair bit of success just sort of switching to like raw, and lost a lot of weight doing that at that time. So I thought, obviously it's worked in the past, so it's, you know, why isn't it working now, I guess.
So team vegan, team lots of raw good stuff, so obviously very nutrient dense, but then as we age, what worked when we were younger doesn't necessarily work when we're older if we don't have the fundamentals down pat. So obviously the focus wasn't necessarily on the fundamentals, it was on, well, you know, trying to eat healthy and clean, which is a really good place to start, but can only get you so far as you've learned. So obviously, you know, then old mate Angus comes along, knight in shining armour, and the hustle commences. So you obviously had an awesome journey full of all sorts of ups and downs, which we'll unpack some of today. But in terms of, I remember with you, it was like, you know, kicking various goals, and then it was like, oh, Angus, I want to do a photo shoot. And that's something that many people would see as kind of like off limits. We'll never get to something like that. That's like for the people that are just obsessed, whatever, and yet Pam comes along and smashes it, right? So, why don't you share, I guess, the experience in terms of what it was like going for something like that, and what that did to your confidence, your self-belief, your mindset, I guess how that changed you going after something like that and doing very well.
Well, even when I started with you, I didn't really have that as a goal from the onset. I just wanted to shed a bit of weight so that I could look good in 6 months' time. But what I didn't realize after 6 months into the program, that, you know, like I might have achieved what I initially set up at the onset, but I realized I want to keep on going, and I want to keep on achieve even greater results. And then sometime after that I realized, look, I've changed so much, not just physically, but mentally. And my entire life kind of changed, because for once, like I used to be really flaky in my personality, and I used to never sort of be able to hold myself accountable. Like I'd start something and then sort of put in 70% and then go, oh, whatever. Yeah. And then obviously that. But for once in my life, I actually completed something. I stuck to a program, and I saw the results. And that's when I realized, if you kind of apply the same method in all areas of life, you can achieve anything. And that was a real sort of like blew my mind when I realized that. So that's when you start working in one area of your life, but you don't understand how that like spills over onto all areas of your life. And just because I've had sort of such a big transformation, like from a personality point of view as well, like mentally and spiritually and everything wise and physically, I just thought, hey, I'm going to celebrate this. And, you know, some people might look at that as being a bit vain, going for a photo shoot or blah, blah, blah. But I just kind of thought, why not? Like, I really worked for this. And I'm 38, about to be 39. And some people might think, well, that's only for like really young chicks. But I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And, you know, you only have the limits that you put yourself under. So I thought, I'm going to do it. Like
and smashed it. And then here we are. So that's, it's huge. So let's touch on a couple of things that you shared there. So it was like, the intention wasn't to do a photo shoot right off the bat. It was to, as you said, just drop some weight, restore confidence, and just get yourself more kind of centered and grounded in who you are, right? Which is one of the big emphasis within the Alpha process, which is a huge emphasis on the mindset behind everything. So that way, when you win and you create victory between your ears, and do the mindset work and personal development, it sets you up to be able to dominate the physical, aka applying yourself to nutrition strategies, training strategies, and just be thirsty for progression. And as you experienced, well, one goal was kicked, and then it was like, I reckon I can achieve this. So it's as if you set your sights higher and higher, and relieved and took away those kind of like limitations that we put on ourselves, because we start to believe in ourselves more, which has been a huge thing for you. Yeah.
And obviously a huge thing that's changed as well has been, obviously the focus on how we've structured training. So obviously, you know, from your background, CrossFit, and then injuring yourself and then just doing shitloads of cardio, to how I structured things, which was just, right, let's just, rather than doing just like hectic high intensity stuff and whatever, it's just, let's just focus on getting stronger and increasing performance and moving more weight from week to week. And, you know, I mean, having that actual structured plan with the goal to move more weight from week to week. So how did you find that? Share sort of, I guess, how that has reshaped your focus and relationship with training. Obviously closer to your photo shoot day, we did introduce more of like a focus on steps so that you could burn a bit more energy. But why don't you share, I guess, how your relationship with training and exercise has changed compared to how it was before?
What I realized actually, like quite early on, but I realized the exercise that I've been doing prior was kind of like punishing myself, you know, like I was punishing myself for not being fit enough. I was punishing myself maybe for like binging on something or whatever. So I would so I thought, well, as a result, I'm going to do CrossFit, and like I'm going to just like do 2 CrossFit sessions in a day, or like if I go for a run, I'm not just going to do a kilometer run, I'm going to like do 20 kilometers, you know. So and I thought that I was you know, that was a good mindset, because I thought like you know, it was good to be extreme. But when I started training with you, I realized I wasn't doing that because I'm extreme in my training. I'm doing it because I was punishing myself. And I realized how important it is to be kind to yourself and treat your body with respect and love. And so it kind of brought back, like starting strength training was so different, because you don't really, it's not like a cardio session. And like for me, it was a slowing down in pace, like in some respect. And I found that it was a lot of self-love in that, actually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, for those tuning in, Pam weighs mid-50s. We got her to a stage where she was, you know, squatting, you know, I think it was like for triples, 80 plus or around 80, you know, deadlifts pulling around 90 to 100. So like, you know, pushing and pulling some really good numbers. And as a result of that, given that she was consistent with nutrition, this is where we've been able to kind of manipulate and control the preservation of muscle mass, but then also increase of a metabolism. So that way she can eat quite a lot in favor of leaning down. And for those of you who, you know, are kind of a bit lost in the nutrition game, at the moment, obviously what's quite, you know, popular is or make keto, right? So where people obviously go very low carbs, put themselves into a rigorous calorie deficit, increase fat intake, and have moderate protein. So with Pam, for example, our goal has been to keep carbs as high as possible, have refeeds quite regularly while staying lean, and with the goal to keep her calories as high as possible with nothing off limits. So obviously this is a huge different sort of focus on food, and you know, especially for mums who are fucking busy looking after kids and just endless demands and stuff like that, you know, it's quite hard to stick to a conventional diet these days. So Pam, why don't you, I guess, share how you know, the whole flexible dieting focus with food has worked within you and your demands, and you being a mum and that sort of thing, given that you've been so consistent and have built obviously an awesome different relationship with food compared to how you were before in terms of team raw, team vegan, that sort of stuff before we started together.
I guess when I started, I used to really demonize some food. So like, you know, chocolate, Nutella, all of that, you know, that's really bad food. Or having, you know, certain things were bad. So everything had a distinct good and bad for me. And I think starting this journey, I realized I didn't have to categorize food like that. I mean, you can if you like, I guess, but for me, it just kind of meant I took the guilt out of eating food. So as long as I stuck to my goals and was mainly healthy, I could still have some of my favorite things, like a glass of wine or, you know, a piece of chocolate. And I didn't have to guilt trip myself over that. And that was just like liberation.
Huge, yeah. I remember seeing you post a regular post in the group about how, munging on some bread after a workout and just, you know what I mean? Like just a completely, or like standard person that's in a conventional dieting scenario would look at that and just be like, what the fuck? Like, how are you lean? How are you doing what you're doing? And they think that just because they look at something like that, that they'll gain a kilo. Yeah. So you've obviously had a huge difference in terms of how you approach food and training now. And, have been able to really take some awesome leaps and bounds in terms of moving towards some great, fat loss as opposed to weight loss and just getting skinny fat like many people do. Or, pushing really hard for 6 to 8 weeks, but then looking good or fairly decent. And then, the typical rebound, it's been a nice, healthy, fairly streamlined, realms of progression, right? Now, when you entered, as you said, you weren't even looking for necessarily coaching or whatever. It was just like, oh yeah, cool, let's see what Angus can bring to the table and what he's all about. So in terms of this being a real hands-on experience with you having coaching and accountability and stuff like that, what do you feel has been the greatest assets and things that you've enjoyed most with having me on your team?
Having someone to keep me accountable, because like I said, I used to be really flaky. I used to never sort of complete anything. I would have a project, and I'm the sort of person who have a lot of projects and ideas and things that I want to do, but I often don't complete them. That's been my personality type in the past. So having someone to actually check in on me initially, you checked in on me daily, how you going, send me your stats, send me your progress. So that really forced me to, actually stay on track. And then after, I think it was after 3 or 4 months, that's when you okay, I only need to check in on you a couple of times now a week. I don't need to check in daily. So that was, I guess that was a big thing for me, having to keep myself accountable, doing it on my own a little bit, going from one day to but that really, I think that's where there were a lot of personal growth in as well, because that's where I actually learned to be personally accountable and complete other projects in my life and really progress in other areas of my life as well, because for once I learned how to keep myself accountable.
Exactly, it's huge, hey.
But I just don't foresee myself, I haven't done it before. And so it was just such a huge learning curve, and I think a lot of people kind of need that, especially because if you don't know what you're doing, then you just sort of out on a loose limb kind of thing, and you kind of I'm not seeing any results, and then you quit. But working with you, I knew that I was always on the right track. I didn't have to question if I wasn't, on the right track, because I always knew that I was progressing, so that was good.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things you touched on there was that aspect of really hands-on at the start, but then gradually, that sort of getting taken back a little bit so that you could shine through in terms of starting to build more and more of your own discipline. That's the biggest thing that people struggle with, is building discipline and creating habit out of doing the things that they know they need to do. Because people think that motivation is the thing, right? That you're going to always feel motivated to put in the work, to track food, to go to the gym, to, do all this stuff. But, as you're probably aware, not all the time you feel like it. Sometimes your feels will work against you. You'll have your negative self-talk. You'll have other shit on that you need to do. And this is where, one of the biggest things with coaching is moving you toward that state of having discipline quicker than as if you were going solo. Because obviously if you're accountable only to your own feels, or you've only got loved ones that tell you what you want to hear, you're going to struggle hard to grow, because you'll just remain in your comfort zone. You won't build that discipline, and then as soon as things get hard or you're busy or just whatever, we opt for whatever's easiest, the path of least resistance, right? Hence why it's struggle street for so many people. They don't really get too far. Now, with you, obviously you're a mum, right? You got a little one, that sort of thing. So for a lot of mums, they typically will feel selfish, prioritizing themselves, or will feel like they're a bad parent by, putting money into investing into coaching, as opposed to putting that into, buying stuff for their kids or for their house to make their life better or whatever, right? So clearly it's a mindset or an outlook point of view, right? Now, in terms of you, obviously, getting amongst coaching, we've been able to achieve significant changes all across the board for you in a much shorter time frame than, obviously your solo journey prior, right? So why would you, like, if you're seeking to pass some words on to other mums that are tuning into this that may, doubt the process or doubt themselves or think that, getting coaching isn't worth the money and that they should just continue the trial and error path or whatever, what words would you impart into them if you were in their shoes?
Well, I'm a big believer that you do need to look after yourself, because if you can't look after yourself, then how can you, positively look after someone else? So, I strongly believe that you need to make yourself a priority, and I mean, my daughter says to me now, "Wow, I can't believe I have such a fit mum." She says that to me almost like, almost every day. And I know that inspires her, and I know that I'm showing up for her by doing work on myself, and I know that that's a positive influence on her.
Exactly, that's it. Stepping into being a greater role model and example for what's possible when you take ownership over your priorities. That's all this is. It's just a game of priorities. When something's priority, you align your energy and thoughts and intentions all around it, and therefore you find a way. When something's not a priority, we hold on to stories and excuses like, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have this, and this. And obviously that's self-sabotaging beliefs that will, keep you stuck at whatever other level of priorities you've got in terms of other things that you're doing. Because, when something is important enough, we find a way. And this is why, people in my process, that are committed and just like bent on achieving the outcome, it's about being solution focused. And that's obviously been a huge thing to take on board for you, Pam, because that led to you starting your own business, to pursuing all these other goals, just going hard in life and stepping out of your comfort zone consistently. Because, right from day dot, I embed into people, all right, cool, you got a problem? What's 3 solutions you can come up with to move forward? Right, implement. And it's a different way of thinking, but it causes you to have to push through because you're solution focused. And how have you found that's changed your thinking, or just changed how you approach problems? What have you noticed differently in terms of how you used to think, with just shit on going on all the time and whatever prior to starting?
I used to not have real structure in anything. So I that's what I realized. Like, some people go like, "Oh, Pam, like you've achieved so much, like physically, like how did you do it?" And I'm just, it's easy. As long as you know how to do it, it's easy. You just literally have to follow the process. So I guess what I'm doing, like outside of fitness, I'm just trying to like work out the process now. Like, what's the process between getting me between here and there? Like, what are the action steps? And then just knowing that, as long as you follow the process, it's actually easy. Exactly.
It's never by chance. It's a means of setting the intention, finding the answers, doing the work, making gains. Simple as that. So yeah, clear, well and truly that you've had that internal transformation, and that's reflected in the physical transformation. So, huge kudos to you. And even being able to achieve abs and stuff as a mum, that sort of stuff is typically seen as something that's impossible / off limits, just like being able to do a pull-up, which you can do as well. So it's like just a means of, you're only limited to that which you put on yourself. Anything you want to learn how to do or achieve, it's just a means of finding someone who can teach you how, and then you're already there. Time's just waiting to catch up. So last question I have for you, Mighty Pam, is obviously online there's various coaches, all sorts of people in the game, right up to people that are pumping out ebooks and all sorts of funny stuff, like old man Ashy Bynes and Kayla and all these other people, right? And then we've got coaches like me that actually give a shit, right? In terms of, I guess, some parting words that you can impart to anyone that's been following me for a while and considering coaching, or has only just come across this video and is like, oh yeah, cool, like coaching might be a good fit for me. Why don't you share a couple of reasons why you think that I'd be an amazing asset to anyone that's going solo, as opposed to them trying to keep going by themselves to try and achieve their goals? What would you like to share in that regard?
I don't mean this as in like disempowering myself, but I honestly could not have done it without you, because you've just sort of unpacked so many like myths and weight loss fads, and like taken the bullshit out of the process essentially, and just gone, this is how it is, and that's what I love about it. And it just sort of brought it back to what it should be, because there's so many shiny objects and out there in the weight loss world or whatever, tried this new diet, blah blah blah. Someone had this results from that. But you know, if you just stick to science and stick to yeah, I just done it without I just couldn't have done it without you just sort of unpacking all of that and just sort of going like, this is not true, this is not true, blah blah blah. You just keep on going like this, and if you do this, and yeah, just that guidance has been just amazing.
Because I'm sure you'd agree that when people overcomplicate things and pump way too much time, energy and money into the stuff that's not actually important, this is obviously where the disempowering feels come in, and where the pushing shit uphill feels kick in, which obviously then lead to people quitting the journey. You know, when you understand the science behind how the body works, how energy works in relation to whatever the goals are, this game is very simple. It's just a means of sticking to the fundamentals, enjoying the journey, and yeah, like the hardest part, if anything, is fat loss, because when it comes to maintaining or building muscle, easy in comparison. So yeah, it's a means of time's always going to go by. Every second that goes by, we're dying. It's just a means of, well, knowing where you want to be at a certain time, and you're either going to wing it to try and get there and hope for the best, or lock yourself into getting there because you found someone who can meet your needs. So thanks so much for being open in regard to this, your journey, Pam. It's been absolutely insane coaching you so far, and I'm excited for where you go in the future. And yeah, many thanks for your time. Awesome effort for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
And boom, there we go. I really hoped you enjoyed that chat with Pam, and just the awesome insight that we unpackaged together in terms of where she was, where she is now, and just, yeah, the epic learnings that she's achieved and created along the way that have gotten into where she is. And one of the things that you would have seen that stuck out for Pam was just how powerful it is to be able to have coaching, someone sharing the journey with you who has walked the path before. So that way, well, rather than just trying to get to where you want to get to when that path hasn't been, you know, trudged before, right? This is where a lot of women make so many mistakes and invest so much time, energy, and money into just dumb fuck silly things that they shouldn't be doing, which is why this sort of journey has such a ridiculously high quit rate. Now, as you would have heard from Pam, well, like, you know, the biggest value that she gained from coaching was just, well, the security and just the certainty that it gave her to be able to keep pushing through and applying herself so that she could be consistent and stick to one path rather than jumping from one to the other, shiny object syndrome, and just being all over the place. So that was what enabled her to be consistent, to get amazing progress and to be able to get towards where she is now. So obviously, in terms of your sense, you're probably seeing this and you're like, oh man, I wonder if coaching could work for me. Oh, I don't know. You might think that, you know, you've probably got shit genetics, or that your thyroid is fucked, or just that your hormones are out of whack, whatever it may be. But hey, what I'd suggest you do, just be like Pam, get in touch, be open-minded, click one of the links below and you'll be able to check out what Alpha Female Mastery online coaching is all about. And yeah, just get a feel for what I'm about and my methods and my philosophies and stuff like that in terms of how I get women lean, you know, in terms of applying science and lifestyle control, and just, I guess, combining the perfect combo that I believe to be in terms of flexible dieting, strength training, and hormone and stress management, to be able to take women to just, yeah, new heights and where they never thought they'd be able to get to, irrespective of whether they birthed a child or not, or whatever age they are. So yeah, check that out. And obviously, if you're keen to connect some more with me from there, you'll be able to connect in, you know, we can chat for a one-to-one and see if coaching is going to be a good fit for you. Otherwise, I hope you gained some value from this video. Go forth and dominate. And thanks so much for watching. See you next time.